Hey guys, it's your girl Sierra. Welcome back to my channel. I'm not showing my face because I just don't feel like it today. But I did want to talk about some Degrassi characters, obviously. But since you're not seeing my face, just letting you know, I'm doing a puzzle. I'm putting back together my Toy Story puzzle. It fell apart. And I have this goal of getting all of the puzzles that I do, getting them glued and framed. Like, I want to have some nostalgic ones and just like cute decor art pieces that are just my puzzles. Yeah, that's what I really want for my future home. That's just like my style. But anyway, moving on from that. So if you hear any click clacking, that's literally why. But I did want to actually talk about some Degrassi characters. This video is really Degrassi characters that I believe should have been friends. So let's jump right on in. First off, this is pretty much a trio, because I feel like what we had for these characters when it comes to the plot line and how they interacted with each other, it could have been handled better and it could have been handled differently. So starting off, my trio I have is Alli, Bianca, and Clare. You're probably sitting there like, what the fuck? Why would you put these people together? Let's start from the very beginning. At the beginning, Alli and Bianca, they seemed at least cordial when Alli wanted to start that dance group because she didn't get onto the cheerleading team. And Spirit Squad, there we go. When Alli didn't get part of the Spirit Squad, she started her own dance team, and Bianca was one of her recruits. At first, Bianca was like kind of like, this is weird, I don't want to do that. And then as she gets there, you know, Alli tries to overstep a little bit and try to make it more of like a clique than it is a dance group. And Bianca's like, nah, we dance. We're not a group of friends that hang out and like go to rallies together type of thing. Like, this is an activity that we do together. Which, in my opinion, when it came to that situation, I agree with Bianca. Like, we're not your clique. We're not your crew. Like, we could be friends and we could hang out. But the whole purpose is for the team to get to know each other, bond, but also to have a shared activity. That's the whole point of doing activities at school or playing sports. You don't have to become best friends. Half these people on your team or in your club, you're probably not going to get along with them anyway, but you just have a shared common interest. And that happens, but you can't expect people to become your friends and your crew. Like, that's not what that experience is supposed to be about. Alli was just really desperate for attention. She wanted to be popular. She wanted to have the popular guy. She wanted to be with Drew. It's the image that she wanted. So coming from Bianca's perspective, it makes sense because that's not what we're here for, girl. But if you wanted that, you could have said, I would love to have a dance crew. But it's like, hey, could we hang out afterwards? Like, hey, like, how about if some of us want to go to the Dot, maybe get some coffee, start off slowly like that. And then while you're hanging out, be like, hey, is anybody going to like a concert? That type of thing, like ease your way into it. You can't go in there expecting these people to be your friends when A, obviously these are extras, and B, you don't even hang out with these people outside of this scene. Like, outside of this scene with her and Bianca with this episode, they never spoke to each other. They never hung out. But somehow somehow Alli knew about Bianca being easy. But like, see, you don't even really connect with these people outside of this. So it's not fair to just assume that they're going to become your best friends and your crew to make you look good. So that's what I think. And from Bianca's perspective, it makes sense because it just doesn't fit. If Bianca never lured Drew to the basement to do the Guac Guac 5000, you know, things would have been different. I feel like they actually could have become friends. I feel as if Bianca and Alli could have learned a lot from each other and they could have been really supportive for each other. They would have been really good friends, in my opinion, because we see how pretty much desperate Alli is to be popular, to have this image of her, to have a guy interested in her. Like, that's Alli's thing. That's Alli's main motivation in high school, is to have this level of popularity and to be cool, while Bianca is like on the outskirts. She could literally talk to Alli and be like, I don't know why you want to be popular. Like, what's the reason for doing this? And Bianca is such a straightforward person So I could see Bianca just straight up asking Alli, why the hell would you want this? If you wanted to have this specific image, you could have had that, but you could have had it somewhere else. I feel like Bianca as a character, she definitely would have said something like that. And even if Alli did take it like as a slight towards her, I could see them like making up. They have a moment of bonding, they fist bump each other. So it's just like, oh, in a way there was a level of respect before they brought Bianca on to do this other mess. Like there was something there between them that could have been friends, but yet we got what we got. So it's like we could have had them have like a solid friendship. And I feel like that would have been a better pairing for friendship versus Alli and Jenna. Alli and Jenna, like, they're supportive of each other, but they're both so fucking messy. Like, Jenna's not a good person. She was never a good friend to Clare. And somehow, some way, they replaced Clare with Jenna to make the Alli and Jenna duo when it was originally Alli and Clare, which makes no sense to me. But I feel as if with Alli and Bianca, it would have been a learning experience for both girls. Like they actually would have grown and really have grown to respect each other and have a better understanding of each other in the world around them because they grew up in such different environments. So now let's add Clare in the mix. I feel like, because obviously without we can't have Clare without Alli or Alli without Clare at some capacity. We made it look to believe as it's like, even though really that's how they portrayed Alli and Jenna's friendship, even though it's not really that. But from the beginning, they seemed like to have such a solid friendship. Adding Clare into that, I feel like they would have really learned a lot from each other because Clare comes from a religious perspective. Alli comes from also a religious household, but a different religion. So they're already different on that front. But also to have Bianca in that mix, maybe Clare would have learned to see how other people could have different faiths beyond her, not just with just Eli, not just her dating life, but getting that perspective from somebody else who has lived through a different experience, who has a rougher life, who may not believe in God, or at least may not have a lot of faith in other people. And so Clare would have been a person that Bianca could have learned to have faith in, to learn to not necessarily you have to believe in like a God or something like that, but to really have faith in herself and to have the confidence to believe that she can actually achieve something. And also because Alli and Clare are such smart characters during the gifted program, Allie's literally on the verge of curing cancer later on in the show. I feel like Alli and Clare would have been really good friends to Bianca to really show her, like, you are smart. You can do other things besides hanging out with these stoners and everything like that. And not in a mean way, but just saying that you have a lot more potential than you think you do. And I feel like they would have been really good friends as a trio. They would have really learned from each other. They really would have grown from each other. I feel like they really would have become such mature characters by the end of their show, by the end of their seasons, that they would have had like a really solid friendship. They would have been really mature young women who could really depend on each other and have just like a solid connection. That's just my belief. Next up is Becky and Clare. And that's mainly because Becky is religious, Clare is religious, and yet we never had them like interact with each other, which is so mind-boggling to me because there is a religious group at school. There at least is a Christian club or whatever, something like that, because Clare had been there before to talk to them about when her parents were divorcing and when she was really struggling with that. I'm just shocked that we didn't see that club again when Becky shows up and maybe Claire's there and maybe they actually just start to develop a bond over their faith. But also, I feel like Clare would have shown Becky a little bit more of a open-minded version of a Christian, because later on we do get Becky on her road of her self journey, and when it comes to really understanding her faith, but also being open as she's, dating Adam or being interested in Adam. But to get that perspective from someone who is Christian and who is open, because Adam did come out to Clare and Clare was very receptive and very accepting of him. So I feel like that would have been a good chance for another Christian character like Claire to open up Becky's mind, at least be there for her when going through that situation. Because why was it Jenna all the damn time? I don't get it. Jenna was not a solid character to me. Like, she's had stuff done to her more than her actually, like, processing and, like, actually becoming a good character. I don't get the appeal of Jenna. Maybe people like Jenna. I don't know. I've never heard anybody say that they like Jenna as a character, because I don't see any growth in Jenna whatsoever as a character. I feel like she's just there to be people's friends and try to be like a sounding board, but she's not a solid character to me to be a good friend to people, because she came off already immediately as not being a good person and not a good friend. So I don't know why she was put in roles and positions to being a friend to other people when she really isn't. It didn't make sense to me. It still doesn't make sense to me. But I feel like Becky and Claire would have been an interesting pairing as friends because of them having the same faith, but having the different perspectives. Because as Becky is grappling with Adam's identity, Claire would have been like, well, yeah, he's a boy. Like, and Becky could have asked, well, you're a Christian. Like, why is this so easy for you to accept? I feel like that would have been very interesting to have that discussion between the two Christian characters of why one is more accepting than the other, or why it's easier for Claire to be more open, because there are people who are Christian who aren't like Christian nationalists, who are sweet, open-minded, but they believe in their faith, but they believe in being a good person first. Like, there are people out there who are like that. Not everybody is going to be as close-minded as Becky was at the beginning. So I feel like that would have been a very interesting dynamic and situation between them as characters and them being friends like that. That would be really cool. That's just my perspective. And also, too, because Becky is a new student, she comes out very bubbly and just wanted to make friends. Immediately, I feel like she would have gravitated towards Claire. Claire's not like the most bubbly person, but I feel like Claire could open up to people. Like, she ends up being part of the freaking newspaper. You don't become part of the newspaper if you're not willing to make friends, or at least like be communicative with other people, and actually, confident and respectful with other people, because that is a team effort when it comes to doing a newspaper about the school. I'm just saying, like, Claire and Becky could have been really good friends, and they could have learned a lot from each other. And that's where I feel like Becky could have had a lot more support when it comes to accepting Adam for who he is, versus just how kind of hard it was for Becky to grapple with everything. I feel like it would have made more sense to me for it to come from that approach, with having another Christian character talking to Becky about it. That's just my perspective. Next up is Craig and Terry. We do get a moment of Craig and Terry being, having at least a conversation after Craig's dad dies in the car accident, and he's really just struggling with losing his parent, but still loving his parent and still reeling from the abuse from his parent. So it's a very hard thing for him to process. And I feel like Terry was a really good person to be that character, to talk him through that moment of losing a parent, because Terry lost her mom. We don't know if Terry's mom was abusive or anything like that, but I don't think so. Even Terry's dad is very like soft, but I feel like just from that perspective alone just really helps when it comes to that kind of hard dynamic of losing a parent. And for Craig, because it is such a traumatic connection and such a traumatic memory of his father, at least Terry was there to at least help him heal, or at least help him be accepting of the fact that he's allowed to be sad regardless of how his father treated him. I would have loved to have seen them like later on in the show, like especially when we start to see when we start to see more symptoms of Craig being bipolar. I would have loved to have seen Terry at least talk to him, because I know, the actress left. We had Terry in a coma. after the whole Rick situation. But if we didn't have that, or at least like, moved it around somehow when it came to like the writing and production of everything like that. But if we had like moved that around and Terry was there for Craig, like if they became like actual friends, I feel like they would have had a really good friendship. Like it would have been one of the very few different sex friendships that we see on the show, because we don't really see men and women, guy and a girl being friends on Degrassi as much as it's always a girl and a girl or a guy and a guy. We got Eli and Fiona, but we didn't see that until later on. So I feel like they would have had a really good friendship because with the shared loss, and also too because Terry was deeply insecure about her appearance. I feel like Craig would have been the perfect hype man. I mean, with his camera and everything like that, he'd been like, oh, let me take your pictures or whatever. Especially the time when Terry got cast, pretty much was being scouted by, I forgot who it was, Toby's mom by accident. Like, I would have loved to have seen Craig been like, yeah, you should like send in some shots. And them having like their own moment where he's like helping her take photos and feel confident in herself. That would have been so freaking good. And I would have cried and I would have ate it up. Like, I feel like they would have had a really good friendship on both sides. And we wouldn't have Craig going through that downward spiral as much. Like, he still would have spiraled, obviously, as a character. But we wouldn't have the extreme that we got. And he probably could have gotten into cocaine still. But I feel like it would have been a lot of an easier transition for him to have somebody who has lost a parent on his side to ease that trauma, ease that guilt, and really help him. She could have also been the person to be like, maybe you need to go to therapy, babe. Like, I could have seen Terry like be like a really good friend and advocate for him to like go to therapy and really just start healing from losing his dad. And we could have had a completely different character in Craig. Like, we didn't have to have the level that we got. We could at least gotten him on a healing journey versus where we left him off at. Because we left him off after he kissed Ellie. That was it. We don't see anything else from Craig. I mean, we saw him for a little bit. I think it was like later on, or was it just Peter who was doing music with Maya? I think it was just Peter. I don't even think we see Craig after that. Maybe. I think so, for a brief moment with Maya, because Maya was doing music. But we don't know what his journey was like. Like, if we never saw him later on, we could have thought he overdosed, or, it could have been anything. So I feel like they just would have been a really good dynamic, really good friend. Next on my list is Shay and VJ. So if you haven't watched Degrassi Next Class, you probably don't know these two. But Shay is technically from the end of Degrassi, so about season 13, 14. And then going into Next Class, VJ is from Next Class because I think he was like a sophomore in Next Class. I think so. No, he was a freshman. He was a freshman in Next Class. Right. And if you don't know these characters, Shay was pretty much our residential smart, good girl, for that generation. She was like our Liberty, essentially, like our smart. She was a track star. And VJ was another version of Tristan, essentially, but just as a non-white person, essentially, as a gay character. But VJ was very, like, expressive. So I feel like they would have had a good friendship because Shay was always, like, very, like, reclusive, like, very to herself. When it comes to, I feel like her emotionally, she was friends with Lola and Frankie. She dated Tiny. But emotionally, I feel like there were times where she just kept things to herself, especially during the whole incident with the other school I forgot the name of the school. It was like Lincoln Tech School, where Frankie made the banner and it was very racist, and she put it on Shay to talk to the team captain of the other school to resolve the issue. I feel like Shay very much just like repressed that. She did snap on Frankie, but it wasn't until a little bit later. But I feel like with them, I feel like with her and VJ would have been the person to be like, no, stand up for yourself. or like don't take that kind of shit, because VJ was not a type of person to take any shit, really. Like, he was a soft character, but he was like, I don't know what your problem is. Like, I love your music, and I put up my own version, so I don't see what the problem is here. And then as soon as Maya was like trying to demand him to take down his version, he's like, no. he's like, your song is a bop. I did my version. It's not my fault that people like my version more than yours or whatever. Like, he wasn't rude about it, but he didn't back down either. And I feel like Shay needed that kind of support because she wasn't getting that from Lola or Frankie, to be quite honest. Frankie was using her white girl tears. Oh, woe is me. Like, oh my God. And just, I'm not racist, right? Like, that type of shit. Like, and then Lola was just there. I feel like Lola she really developed her friendship skills more when it came to, I forgot the other character's name, that she ended up talking to more later on towards the end of Degrassi Next Class. But really, I feel like Shay really didn't have any friends, to be quite honest. If you really think about Lola and Frankie as characters, that's just my opinion. You could say that that maybe Shay wasn't as a good friend to Frankie or Lola either. It was just I feel like their trio was just so messy and unstable that it just didn't work for me for them to be friends. But I feel like her and VJ would have been good friends and very supportive of each other and hyping each other up. Whenever, if let's say if VJ ever said something that was a little bit out of pocket, Shay would have been like, VJ, no. Should have been calm down, or just do you really think that's a good idea? Because that sounds stupid to me. I feel like having a friend that'll keep you in check is always a good friend to have. You don't need a friend to always support your terrible decisions. A good friend is one to tell you you're being an idiot and I love you, but you're also being an idiot and that's the dumbest thing you've ever said. But they're not condescending or mean about it, but they being upfront about it. I feel like Manny and Paige would have been good friends if we never had the Manny and Paige beef in the first place. I feel like they would have been good friends, in my opinion. You're probably like, oh my God, what? Because Manny is I feel like Manny was the younger version of Paige without the extra meanness added to it. Because Paige was our resident mean girl, but Manny was the one person that could check Paige with the quickness. She said, first of all, ho, what you're not about to do is get in my face like that. And I feel like with Paige as a character, before she started to go down her own journey of growth and everything like that, she needed someone to be comfortable putting her in check, because even Hazel was a little bit hesitant sometimes to put Paige in check. I think it was maybe a few times where Hazel, told her about herself, but she always looked timid while saying it. She was scared of Paige. I was just like, girl, put some bass in your voice. But Manny was always the character. She said, and what? Run up if you want to. I don't care. And I feel like they would have been good friends because they would have been I feel like they would have just backed each other up when it came to certain situations, but they also would have held each other accountable. So like I said, a friend is a real friend is a person who's going to tell you when you're being stupid and when you could, when you could do better. And I feel like Manny and Paige would have been good friends like that, especially later on when Paige is in college and struggling to keep up. Manny would have been the friend to be like, look, you are the baddest bitch I know. You're the smartest one I know. You need a break? Then we'll study together or whatever. But what you're not going to do is sit here and waddle in your self-pity or whatever, because we're going to figure this out. Also, your professor sounds like a bitch anyway. I feel like Manny would have been a friend for Paige, especially through that situation, because Paige was going through that all on her own. She didn't really talk to anybody about that. So she was really just struggling with the fact that she didn't have a good adjustment to college. And I feel like Manny, just being a good friend, would have been up there for her and would have been like, we're going to figure this out because you are too smart. You are too sharp to be this distressed. I get it. You're struggling. But girl, we got this. Come on, let's figure it out. I feel like they really would have just been, you know how they always say there's the power couple? They would have been that power friendship where it's just two bad bitches who support each other and hold each other down when the other one is struggling or going through something. But they know when to step in when their friend is probably doing too much or just being rude to somebody or anything like that. They know to be like, hey, check yourself. You're getting out of pocket right now. The last pairing on my list, saving essentially the best for last, because quite honestly, I feel like this would have been the best pairing. Shante and Liberty. Let's stick with the fact that Shante should have stayed with her class. Like, I understand, like, not having Shante graduate with Liberty, Manny, Emma, JT, and Toby, even though obviously JT didn't graduate. But I understand not putting her with their class. But she was at a fucking slumber party with them. Even if she was in the class under them, that would have been fine too. But because a lot of the times, a lot of these characters, their friends are in different classes anyway. So I feel like Shante and Liberty would have just been really good friends. Shante, in her later seasons, she is, she's something. She is the one that's literally running like the school's social media. She's like our black girl Perez Hilton. She's very messy, but she's also on point at the same time. You can't say Shante is wrong when it comes to her takes about certain things, or just like what she posts. Like, she is a controversial person, but she's not wrong. To me, I don't think she's like wrong. Like, she really did spark a lot of conversations, especially with her post about Danny not paying for her food. But she didn't even outright say it was Danny, but she did just did a post on, do you think that the boyfriend should pay for the girlfriend's meals? Like, that's a discussion to have. Like, that's something that was really important to discuss, and that was something that was important to her. But she wasn't necessarily like digging at him. She just thought that was something to discuss about. And she was such a direct person. I feel like her and Liberty would have been really good friends, because let's take into account Liberty. Liberty as a character from seasons 1 through 8 when she's on the show, and the very end when everyone is together by JT's memorial, they're classified as like, oh, the OG crew. But in reality, when you watch the seasons back, Liberty was never really with them. There was maybe like a few scenes of Liberty hanging out with them. But when you really watch those seasons and you pay attention, Liberty is never near Emma, Manny, or Toby. Maybe JT, if JT says like a quip and then she's off screen, but she's not there. So how can y'all say that she's part of that crew? And even one of my, a new YouTuber I just watched, I'll put her video in the description box below, but she even talked about in a video, this was like 10 months ago, and I love people who make Degrassi videos, so I'm going to watch her content from years back. I don't give a fuck. I'm going to watch it and like it. So what? And she even really brought up the fact that the promos for Degrassi The Next Generation with the photos, you see Emma, Manny, Toby, and JT. You do not see Liberty. Where the fuck was Liberty? Was she not casted yet? And even then, there's maybe like 1 or 2 photos of Liberty with them, but she's not even in the promo. So it's like, how can you say that she's part of that friend group? So essentially, within her seasons, she didn't really have any fucking friends. To be quite honest, she didn't have any friends. So if they kept Shante where she was, that would have been a really good perspective of having 2 black girls who are best friends. Liberty comes from a very affluent family. I think her dad was like a doctor or a lawyer, and her mom was the other one. Like, I feel like her parents were like a doctor and a lawyer, or 2 doctors, 2 lawyers, something like that. But she comes from a very affluent family. And Shante, we don't know Shantae's parents' background, but with the way how Shante is, I believe that they would have been somewhat on Liberty's family's same income level, or at least the same standards. Like, at least they had the same beliefs. Like, this is what you need to do. Like, we need to work 10 times harder than other people to have a successful life. And they would have drilled that into Shante, because Shante is the type of character who seems like she works her ass off doing whatever she has to do. We don't see it, but I feel like that's who she is as a character, especially when it comes to her social media, when it comes to her sparking very important discussions. I feel like she is that type of person. We don't see it, but that's just what I think of Shante as a character and what her home life was probably like. But I feel like they would have been a really interesting friendship to show, because we don't see like two black girls being friends on the show at all. Not at all. Paige and Hazel. Paige is white, Hazel's black. I don't even, there's nowhere on the show where there's like two black girls being friends. So that would have been the first like black girl magic type of friends, like both coming from families that have such high standards. They could have really like leaned on each other for support. Liberty could have actually had somebody to talk to about being pregnant, because we never got Liberty's perspective at all about being pregnant. We only focused on JT's experience and feelings about becoming a teen father, but we don't get anything about Liberty. So it looks to the viewers as if Liberty is a cold-hearted person. Even Mia's character pointed that out, saying that you're a walking, talking robot. But that's because we never saw anything about how Liberty was feeling about being pregnant. I doubt she talked to anybody. I don't think she would talk to Emma. I don't think she would talk to Manny, because even they didn't fucking know. So Liberty was dealing with this by herself, which is not good. She should have had somebody to talk to. They should have given her Shante. I'm just saying, that would make the most freaking sense. Like, she's there as a character. You had her in one of your episodes in their fucking seasons, but you didn't utilize her till 4 seasons later in the fucking show. And even then, you barely used Shante as a character. That doesn't make any sense to me. That could have been the perfect friend for Liberty. They would have been great friends for each other. Just to actually showcase a good, solid black girl friendship. Like, y'all missed the mark completely when it comes to that. That was the perfect opportunity to show that. We could have had Liberty crying in Shantae's arms. Shante going with her to the doctor's appointment when she thought she might be pregnant. Like, I'm just saying, it was right there the entire time, but it wasn't utilized. It wasn't explored at all. Like, we really could have just seen Liberty so much more as a character than we have ever seen before, if we actually had her have a friend. Because she didn't have any friends. Shante, she didn't exist, so clearly she didn't have any friends either. Like, it would have been a really good friendship to see, especially for black girls who go to diverse schools or predominantly white schools, and there is maybe like one other black girl in the school, or maybe other 2 black girls, and people would just automatically assume that they're friends. But even if they weren't, but still, at least have them have that community. Like, something. Like, that mark was just missed entirely, and it's frustrating, like, now thinking about it and seeing how, and like picturing how they could have really showcased this friendship in the show if they actually took the time to care for Liberty as a character. If they cared about Liberty as a character, they would have delved in more into her character and developed more sense of Liberty as a person, giving her a friend who is at her level, who actually considers her a friend and not a threat, Emma. We would have gotten something completely different. Even if you guys weren't ready to showcase Shantae's story yet, because you guys had her as an actress, so maybe you weren't ready completely to have a whole storyline. Maybe you didn't have any ideas yet. But at least at the beginning, while Liberty is the part of the main cast, at least showcase Shante supporting her. And then once they graduate, Shante would be in her senior year, sophomore year, whatever. We don't know what the age difference was when she's at the party, but even if it's like 2 years, we could have then later had seasons about Shante as a person, but would have been introduced to her a long time ago, and we would have at least known what kind of person she was, versus seeing the actress's face time and time again, and we're like, why the fuck are you still here? We would have had more of a concrete, at least, character, at least a little bit of Shantae's personality and who she's like as a person, versus just having a blank slate the entire time for her as a character. So I feel like they would have just been really good friends, and would have just made fucking sense, because it just would have made sense to me. But that's all I have for this video. If you like this video, be sure to like it. Comment below what friend pairing would you put together that would be like the best unlikely friends or whatever. Maybe not unlikely friends, but the best friend pairing that you can think of from the characters on the show. Maybe you can cross seasons. I don't care. Like, if you think if Jimmy would have been friends with, I don't fucking know, anyone from later on, maybe Tiny. Like, you can do anything like that. I would love to know, like, just your creativity, just thinking about the characters and how they could have really supported one another or where they would have fit in the season, in the show. Anyway, until next time, stay magical. Bye.